Good afternoon, 93.9 KPDQ. It's the spot on the FM for Faith and Family. A little bit later on, Georgine Rice will be on just after 4 o'clock. You got Andy right here, and this is the Northwest Showcase. Good to have Dr. David Day here from Day Chiropractic, and I want to give you their phone number. They're easy to find. They're just south of Powell Boulevard, right between Powell and Foster.
Right? Yeah, sure.
Very easy to find. The phone number 503-760-7572, 760-7572. On the web, daychiropractic.com. And we're talking about, well, a very interesting story involving football player Jim McMahon and the pain that he had, like a lot of football players.
Yes, and the loss of memory. He was forgetting how to get to from stores or anything. All these sorts. He'd forget that he needed to go to the store for something and all sorts of crazy stuff.
Right.
Well, so we got to the point where these doctors who developed this MRI, and they ultimately did a very special MRI, which was an upright MRI for him to be able to differentiate and diagnose this thing. But McMahon said he was never told about any neck problems, believing that his post-NFL issues were solely concussion-related. So what he had been told is he had sustained so many concussions while he was playing football that his brain was just not working right, and it got kind of scrambled in the concussions.
Hey, they take some big hits.
Bingo,
I
right?
mean,
That's not unreasonable.
Yeah.
It makes perfect sense, doesn't it? So, like, you might have been in a car wreck and hit your head on the windshield or something, and you've been told, well, the reason you're having these problems now is because you hit your head and had a concussion. So I want you to listen to this. If that's you, right? That may not be the whole story. It's not that that's wrong. It's just that there might be some other elements that perhaps could be affected. All right. So Dr. Damadian said the only thing that would make something like this happen to your neck is if you get dumped on top of your head, McMahon said. Well, I told him that's what happened in 1986. But I had taken so many painkillers when I was playing, I couldn't feel anything. So this is the other problem we have. If what you're doing to cope is taking all these pain meds, opiates, all sorts of stuff, right? You might really not be aware of everything that your body is feeling. You're kind of doing that to numb yourself and things like that.
Sure.
So McMahon, who is part of an ongoing lawsuit among former players suing the NFL over what they allege is an indiscriminate use of painkillers, and who is also one of more than 4,000 former players in a concussion-related lawsuit against the league, he pointed to another hit in 1993 when he was with the Vikings. And I thought this was interesting. He said, I got hit from the side and my neck got bent. And he said, I laid there for a good 2 or 3 minutes. I thought I was knocked out, but I was wide awake. I said, don't touch me. I can't feel my legs. I went to the sideline, sat there a minute, and I said, I can go back in. I threw a ball and somebody barely brushed my helmet and my legs went numb again, right? So he had been hit from the side and someone touched his helmet, the side of his head, and his legs went numb. Ooh, in fact, I've got a case right now. I think the pain that's going down his leg is from his neck. And it's kind of an interesting thing. How do we arrive at, how do we get to that? You have to have testing, right? I've got thermal imaging, surface EMG, all sorts of stuff.
Right.
And this is, in fact, I had a conversation with him about possibly just adjusting his neck. I've decided to do, he has some other things, so I'm dealing with it all, but like I told him, I think when I fix the neck, the leg is going to be taken care of. But McMahon said that the injury protocol during his career was simplistic and largely ineffective. Unlike today's NFL, in which players are closely monitored and are removed from a game if a concussion is suspected, back when he was playing, only cursory things were done. Back then, the doc was asked, "Can you follow my finger?" So they would, and if you could follow with a finger, you'd go back into the game. I mean, that was it.
It's so scary.
Oh my word! So anyhow, that has radically changed now and so forth. So anyhow, so a few days after the MRI was done, these two guys took McMahon and his girlfriend to the upstate Rock Hill office of, guess who? A chiropractor, Dr. Scott Rosa.
You think McMahon was, I mean, obviously he was open to this, but what do you think he was thinking in the back of his mind when they're saying, hey, let's go to the chiropractor?
I know. I mean, he's been able to go to this top specialist. Imagine who he's been told. I mean, he had flown from, he lived in Scottsdale. He'd already flown up to have this specialized MRI done. And then those doctors take him over to a chiropractic office. I mean, it's like, oh my word. He had treated many athletes, as well as others suffering from multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's, autism, Lou Gehrig's disease, and other neurodegenerative diseases. Rosa performed an adjustment that aligned the C1 and C2 vertebrae near the base of McMahon's skull. The relief was almost instantaneous.
Wow.
When they first did it to me, it was like the toilet flushed, McMahon said. I'm thinking, Oh my word! I wonder what that felt like.
It's so simple but so complex.
Yes! I thought to myself, McMahon said, no wonder I can hear my heart beating. It was bang, bang, bang. I was having trouble speaking. I couldn't see clearly. But as soon as Dr. Rosa moved those bones, it was amazing. Terry saw McMahon shortly after the procedure and was astonished. I saw a face that was almost ghostly white, flush pink right after. So his face changed from being like a ghostly white to a flush pink right after. I said, Jim, how are you feeling? He said, actually pretty good. I said, don't BS me. He said, no, I feel pretty good. I don't have a headache anymore. Then the girlfriend said, who once thought her boyfriend would never be whole again, almost couldn't believe what had just happened. Lori was teary-eyed because it was like a miracle, Terry said. She simply said, I got my Jimmy back. So one of the things that I look forward to is I want to get Joe back, or I want to get Bob back, or I want to get Mary back. Whoever has been lost because they're in such pain that they're having to sleep in their bed with the lights turned off because their body's not working. And so if you know anybody like that, let's at least give them the courtesy to see maybe they need to be uncorked. You know, like a let's open that champagne bottle
Sure,
and
let's do that.
make it fun, right? So McMahon needed a few more treatments and still requires help in making sure his spine is properly aligned. And I think he gets adjusted every 2 to 3 months, something like that. And there's still some short-term memory loss, but not nearly to the extent he experienced before getting help. And there's joint pain from arthritis, which he understands and accepts after so many plays in the NFL. But there's also relief from his symptoms that once threatened his life. So and now he's gone to college, gotten his BS degree and so forth. And anyhow, so the article does go on. And what I'll go ahead and put a link. I think I might go ahead and make a blog post about this. So if you want to see this article and actually read it and so forth, because it's a marvelous article, and I love thinking about things that go wrong with us and then the context, right? Because we always think about injuries and how it affects our lives,
right?
And so by telling the story of a person, then it gives us a way to think about our own lives and reflect about what's happened. And then you can start thinking, I did get in a car accident when I was in college, and well, I thought I was okay. I walked away from it, but I seemed to be 10 years later when things start falling apart. Because you remember that they said they usually see the pattern that he had in his neck was usually from someone who lands kind of like a pile driver down on their head sort of a thing, and that had happened to Jim. Almost 20 years prior. So it's really kind of an interesting thing that once they figured out where the misalignment was, and they could fix it and flush that, it's like a toilet flush. I love that image.
So tell me this.
Yeah.
We all know that the spinal area is like a breaker box.
Yes.
And so if it gets damaged or, and it needs to be properly aligned, do you think when they actually did the adjustment on Jim McMahon, it was almost like jump starting a car?
Yeah.
Because, what do you think happened as far as the electrical system in your body?
So if we think, the problem is I don't know how extensive, I don't know, but they mentioned they just adjusted the bone 1 and 2.
Okay.
So something must have happened very high up, right below his skull.
And fast.
And right, yeah, and it was traumatic. It was that. So in my world, you could, and I use this circuit breaker analogy. If someone has if there's C5 or 6, or there's a bone that's out, because like carpal tunnel or something where there's a nerve that kind of goes down the arm, that makes sense. Well, his was affecting his brain to a dramatic So
that's amazing.
So what if you're having problems with those things, almost always there's an upper neck issue and so there's a cerebrospinal fluid kind of probably congestion or lack of flow, right? So there's that, but there's also the electrical efficient. I tell people it's almost like I'm going to restore the neural network in your body. It's almost like maybe you have a computer network that you should have broadband connection or something like that, but there's something slowing the network down, and you got to find where that interference is, and it can be anything. Well, like I told the guy that down the leg, when I did all my testing, if it was a circuit breaker, we would expect that if you go to a medical doctor and you've got sciatica or something, they're going to look at your low back. And that's where we would expect the problem to be, okay? That's not the way it was in him. All my tests, they didn't show anything wrong in his low back. Now, there's some structural issues that I can deal with. But what I believe the nerve interference is actually up high in his neck. And it's fixing the neck is what's going to turn on. And I had to explain to him, I said, the nerve that goes down your leg, it actually starts in your brain. it travels through your neck, through your upper back, through your mid back, and on down. So you could have a choke point of that at any point along the way, and it could be not just one. It could be one minor one here and one minor one down at a different place. Those two summate to be more than one bad one, right? So there's lots of issues in the nerve system when we talk about kind of, and so like a power panel, you can think of a breaker. The other thing is I sometimes tell people, you may need to reboot. Remember that turbo button, the button on the computers we used to press? Well, we don't do that anymore, but we, it was kind of, it's kind of, and I actually use a little, I have an AccuSpark, which is what I call it, which is a little device. It's like one of those things. It's similar to how you start it's a little spark, so you can start a fire in your barbecue grill, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Well, I use that because we are largely electrical, right? And it makes the muscles contract, and I can feel something happens when the body starts to flow and it starts to work, because then the muscles jump. If I do that and everything's dead, it's like something's not flowing. Now, what's not flowing? I have no idea.
Right.
But this is all been doing this over 30 years now. And I'm getting these tough, complicated cases. They've been all over. They think they're crazy by the time they come and see me. And then they meet me and they realize they're not crazy. I'm the one who's crazy, right? But this is what it takes. If you've got a tough situation, how do you get to the bottom of it? You've got to have somebody who thinks divergently. Everybody who thinks like lemmings, if that was the problem, you would have been fixed. If you're still having a problem, you need somebody crazy like me, because I look and I say, there's got to be a problem, and it's got to be someplace that we don't expect it to be. And then how do we fix it? And then we have to get creative.
All right, so hey, this is exciting. Let's take a break. The Northwest Showcase is on. Day Chiropractic is who's bringing you the showcase this afternoon. Dr. David Day is here, and here's our phone number. If you have a question about chiropractic, maybe you've been involved in an accident or you have some pain that simply won't go away, give us a call locally, 503-786-9390. Toll free outside of Portland, 800-845-2162. You're listening to the Northwest Showcase on 93.9 KPDQ.